You ever have one of those moments that gets burned into your memory so deep? You could swear you hear it in your dreams. That's what happened the day my daughter called me stupid. Not in a fight, not in anger, just a flippant, glossy little insult tossed across the room like it didn't mean anything. It was a Thursday afternoon, one of those spring days where the air smells like blooming azaleas and fresh mulch. I'd just come home from work. My nursing shift ran long, as usual. My feet were barking, and my head was still spinning from the drama in room 403. I walked in the door, still in scrubs, to the sound of laughter. Her laughter. Cassie was sitting in the living room with her friends, Emma, the one with the ever-present caramel latte, and Zoe, the tall one who looked at me like I was the help. They were cross-legged on the rug, papers and planners spread out like they were running a Fortune 500 company, planning their last hurrah before college. I should have known better than to interrupt, but I didn't. I stepped in with a tray of snacks, carrot sticks, hummus, fancy crackers, and those cheese wedges from Whole Foods I'd had to use a coupon for. I smiled, the same way I used to when she was 6 and came home with finger paintings. "Here you go, girls," I said cheerfully. "I figured you might be hungry." Cassie didn't even look up from her planner. Zoe glanced over and gave me this patronizing half smile, like I was an Uber Eats driver who showed up with the wrong order. Then Cassie, still scribbling in her pink gel pen, said it. "Don't be stupid, Mom. You wouldn't understand." It hit me so fast, I didn't even know what to do with the sting. Her friends giggled. Those polite, practiced giggles of teenage girls who think they've discovered the world, and everyone older than 30 is a dinosaur. I stood there for a beat too long, holding that tray like it was made of lead. My hand started to shake. Not from rage, no. From that deep, quiet heartbreak that you can't even cry out loud over. I set the tray down, delicately, like my whole identity hadn't just been dismissed in front of her friends, and I walked upstairs. I didn't slam the door. I didn't scream. I sat down on the edge of my bed, still wearing my compression socks, and I cried like I hadn't cried since my mama died. Just soft, exhausted sobs into a throw pillow. That word, stupid, echoed in my head. All the sacrifices, all the years, and now I was stupid. That night, I didn't say a word. Not when she came upstairs, not when she asked for a ride to the movies. I said yes. I drove them there in my old Camry with the squeaky belt and the faded, "I voted" sticker on the bumper. I waited in the parking lot for 2 hours while they watched some rom-com with a British lead. When I got home, I opened my laptop and logged into the 529 college savings account. I stared at that number on the screen. 5 digits that represented every overtime shift, every unbought dress, every single vacation I gave up so she could have her shot. I transferred the money into my checking account, every penny, and then I sat back in my chair and sipped my tea like it was the first peaceful moment I'd had in years. The next morning, I called the admissions office of her dream college. I explained that there had been a change in financial circumstances. "I'm sorry," the woman said kindly. "Would you like to defer?" "No," I said. "Cancel." When Cassie came home that evening, she found me at the kitchen table, flipping through brochures for the local community college. "We need to talk," I said. She looked at me confused. "About what?" "About what comes next," I said, and I didn't flinch. Cassie didn't understand at first. Her brow furrowed the way it used to when she was a little girl trying to solve a tough math problem. She sat across from me at the kitchen table, slouched, arms crossed, still in her sweatshirt from the night before. Her hair pulled up in one of those effortless messy buns that probably took 20 minutes to get just right. "What are you talking about?" she asked. Her tone was sharp, already edging into that impatient whine she reserved for customer service calls and teachers who dared to take points off her essays. I slid the folder across the table. Inside were printouts, tuition costs from 3 state schools, application requirements for the local community college, a part-time job listing I'd circled in red. "You're not going to Harrington," I said gently. She blinked, like I'd spoken in a different language. "What?" "I canceled the payment. I withdrew the funds." "Mom," she said slowly, like maybe I'd lost my mind. "That's not funny. It's not a joke." The silence between us grew thick. syrupy. Then came the explosion. Are you insane? She snapped, shoving the folder back toward me. You're ruining my life. There it was. The real Cassie. Not the one she showed on Instagram with her matcha lattes and sunset selfies. This was the raw, entitled, ungrateful version I hadn't seen since she was 15 and grounded for sneaking out to a party. You called me stupid, I said quietly. She froze. I didn't, she started, but I raised my hand. You did. Maybe not to my face, but you said it. In front of your friends. You made me feel like I was nothing. She looked away. Out the window. Anywhere but at me. You're being dramatic, she muttered. No, I said. I'm finally being honest. I've given you everything, Cassie. And I mean everything. I worked 2 jobs to make that college fund. I ate peanut butter sandwiches for dinner. I haven't bought a new winter coat in 6 years. And this is how you thank me. She was quiet. Angry, but quiet. And in that silence, I saw something shift in her. Maybe guilt. Maybe just the slow, creeping realization that things were going to change. You can still go to school, I said. But it's going to be your effort now. Your loans. Your part-time jobs. Your ramen noodles and bus rides. You don't get to treat people like trash and expect them to fund your future. I didn't mean it, she whispered. I know, I said. But you said it. And sometimes words have consequences. She stormed upstairs, slammed her door. I sat there at the kitchen table for a long time, sipping my tea, the kind that had gone cold ages ago. I thought about everything I had sacrificed, all the quiet humiliations I had swallowed, and for the first time in a long time, I felt something like power. Later that night, I heard her crying. I didn't go to her. I didn't knock. I let her feel it. Sometimes a lesson doesn't stick until the silence settles in. And me, I started looking into a cooking class at the community center. Something just for me. Because if this chapter was closing, I figured I'd write the next one myself. The next morning, the house was unnaturally quiet. No thumping music from Cassie's room. No clatter of a rushed breakfast. Just the slow hum of the fridge and the whisper of rain against the kitchen window. I sat at the table with my coffee, the same mug I'd used every morning for over a decade, chipped at the rim, a faded "World's Best Mom" scrawled across the side. Cassie came downstairs eventually, still in her pajamas, hair matted on one side from sleep. Her eyes were puffy. I wondered if she'd been crying again. She didn't say good morning. She didn't even look at me. Just poured herself some cereal, crunching each bite like it was my heart under her teeth. That was fine. I wasn't looking for an apology. Not yet. Later, I heard her on the phone. Her voice was low but urgent, that panicked-edged teenagers get when their world suddenly tilts. No, she actually did it, yeah, the whole thing. I don't know. She's acting like I committed a crime or something. I closed the door to my bedroom, not because I didn't want to hear it, but because I already had. I didn't need a replay of my failure as a mother playing through the thin drywall. That afternoon, an envelope arrived from Harrington. Cassie didn't open it. She just stared at it on the counter like it was a ghost come to haunt her. It was probably her housing information, or maybe orientation details. I picked it up, handed it to her gently. She looked at me then, for the first time in days. Really looked at me. Why are you doing this? I took a deep breath. Because I need you to understand something I failed to teach you when you were younger. Money doesn't just appear. Respect isn't optional. And love, real honest, enduring love, deserves to be recognized. She stared at the envelope in her hands like it might burst into flames. Everyone else's parents are paying, she whispered. I'm not everyone else, I said. And you, Cassie, are not entitled to what I bleed for. She stormed out then, slipped on her sneakers, and slammed the front door behind her. I didn't chase her. I just watched from the window as she stalked down the sidewalk, her umbrella forgotten, rain soaking through her sweatshirt. I let her walk. That evening, I made dinner like usual, chicken and rice, her favorite. I didn't expect her to eat, but when she came home soaked and silent, she sat down at the table without a word and took a bite. No thank you, no apology. But she ate every last grain of rice. And me. I started planning. Not for her, but for me. I found a local nonprofit, that helped women my age re-enter the workforce. They offered resume workshops, confidence training, even job placements. I hadn't worked outside the home in years. Not since I quit my paralegal job when Cassie was born, but it was time. Because if she was going to learn how to stand on her own, then I had to show her what that looked like. The next week passed in fragments: cold cereal bowls, unopened college brochures, and a tension so thick it felt like you could peel it off the walls. Cassie still hadn't apologized. Not directly, but she stopped slamming doors. She stopped muttering under her breath when I walked by. That was something. I went to my first workshop on a rainy Wednesday morning. The nonprofit operated out of an old church basement that smelled faintly of lemon cleaner and old hymnals. There were 8 of us in the room, women with lines around their eyes and stories you could see in the way they folded their arms. We weren't there to vent. We were there to rebuild. I was a homemaker for 20 years, one woman said. Now I'm learning how to write a resume. I raised 5 kids, and my husband left me for his secretary, another added. And I haven't had a job since Reagan was president. We laughed, the kind of laugh that's less about humor and more about survival. When it was my turn, I said, I was a paralegal before my daughter was born. Gave it up to raise her full time. Now she's almost 18, and I'm starting over. There were nods, knowing ones. Women who understood what it meant to give up your own name for the title of mom. I left that day with a folder full of handouts and a strange new feeling. Not joy, not hope, something steadier, like resolve. Back home, Cassie was on the couch, scrolling through her phone. She glanced up as I walked in. Where were you? Out, I said, peeling off my rain jacket. She waited. I didn't elaborate. Later that evening, she hovered in the doorway of the kitchen as I prepped dinner. I could feel her eyes on me, that mix of confusion and discomfort that comes when you start seeing someone differently. What are you doing? Chopping carrots, I said, not looking up. No, I mean lately. You're different. I stopped chopping. Wiped my hands on a towel. I'm finding myself again, I said. I lost her somewhere between the field trip sign-up sheets and the late-night runs for poster board. She didn't laugh, but she didn't leave either. That night, I heard her crying again. This time, I stood outside her door for a moment. Just one moment. But I didn't go in. Because loving your child doesn't mean cushioning them from every consequence. Sometimes it means stepping back and letting them find their footing, even if it means they fall. It was a Thursday, 2 weeks since I'd canceled the college payment, when Cassie finally cracked the ice. We were in the kitchen again, that little stage where so many of our battles had played out over the years. She stood by the sink, arms folded, eyes red-rimmed but determined. Do you really think I'm that horrible? She asked. It was not the question I expected. I set down the dish towel slowly, took a breath. I think you're 18, I said. And I think somewhere along the way, you started mistaking privilege for a right. Her lips pressed into a hard line. I wasn't trying to hurt her, just name the truth. You've had a good life, Cassie, I continued. Not an easy one, maybe, but good. And most of it came from sacrifice. Mine, silence. The kind that hums like tension wire between 2 cliffs. I know you work hard, she said quietly. I just didn't think. You didn't think, I echoed. That's the thing. You didn't have to. She looked down at her chipped nail polish. So what now? You just give up on me. I walked around the kitchen island, placed a hand on the counter to steady myself. I will never give up on you, I said, voice thick with everything I had been holding back. But I will stop handing you tools you used to hurt me. Her eyes welled up. She looked younger than she had in years. I'm scared, she admitted. I don't know how to do this without help. I'm not taking away help, I said. I'm taking away the entitlement. There's a difference. That night we sat together, awkward, distant, but side by side, filling out new FAFSA forms and looking at state school applications. Cassie didn't complain. She didn't pout. She just asked questions, took notes. It wasn't forgiveness. Not yet. But it was a beginning. Later, when she'd gone to bed, I curled up with my laptop and applied for a part-time admin job at a local law office. My resume was clunky, my confidence shakier than I wanted to admit. But I hit send. Because this wasn't just her rebirth. It was mine too. The admin job called back the next day. You're a little overqualified, the woman said, her voice muffled by the sounds of typing in the background. But we could really use someone with your experience. Can you start Monday? I said yes before I let myself think too much about it. After all, fear and growth often share the same doorstep. Monday came quickly. I pulled out my old work clothes from the back of the closet, slacks I hadn't worn since the Bush administration, and a blouse that still smelled faintly of lavender sachets. I stood in front of the mirror, adjusting the collar, remembering the woman I used to be before every part of me became about being someone's mother. Cassie came down the stairs just as I was pouring my travel mug of coffee. She paused at the bottom step. You look nice, she said, tentative. Thank you, I replied, slipping on my sensible shoes. She watched me, eyes flicking to my purse, my keys, my face. So you're really doing it, she asked. I am. A beat of silence. Then I hope it goes well. Me too, I said, and I meant it. The law office was small, tucked between a bakery and a chiropractor's office in a strip mall that had seen better days. The receptionist was in her 20s, with a nose ring and a nervous smile. We're a little chaotic, she warned, but it's a good kind of chaos. By lunchtime, I'd already filed 3 stacks of case notes, scheduled 5 client meetings, and answered more phone calls than I had in the last decade. It felt like riding a bike with a few wobbles, but I was pedaling. And strangely, I wasn't exhausted. I was invigorated. Back home, Cassie was at the kitchen table, surrounded by open textbooks and a laptop. Her hair was pulled back, pencil in hand. You're home late, she said as I dropped my bag by the door. I worked late. There was a printer jam, and someone brought cupcakes for Donna's birthday. She gave me a look. You made a joke. Don't get used to it, I said, but I smiled. That night, we shared a frozen pizza and sat on the couch together, not saying much, just existing in the same space without tension. It was fragile, uneasy, but it was real. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like a background character in my own life. I felt like me. By the end of my second week at the law office, I could feel the rhythm settling into my bones. Morning coffee in the break room. Scanning files while Donna told long-winded stories about her dog's digestive issues. Clients with sad eyes and urgent voices. I wasn't just clocking hours, I was contributing. My brain, once foggy with domestic autopilot, was beginning to spark again. Cassie noticed. Not just in words, she wasn't quite there yet, but in the way she stopped asking where I was going, or why dinner wasn't ready by 6. Instead, she began fending for herself. Small things at first, making her own lunch, remembering to do laundry. Then one day I walked into the kitchen and found her rinsing a pan. Don't get used to this, she muttered, cheeks pink. I didn't respond, just took a sip of my coffee and pretended not to smile. The shift between us was slow like the tide. Some days the waves came in gently, others crashed hard. We still had our friction. She'd make a sarcastic comment. I'd let silence stretch just a little too long. But those moments didn't end in slammed doors anymore. They ended in quiet, sometimes even understanding. One night after work, I found her sitting at the kitchen table surrounded by brochures and sticky notes. What's all this? I asked, toeing off my shoes. I've been looking into scholarships, she said without looking up, and part-time jobs near the university downtown. If I can get in-state tuition. She trailed off, waiting. I pulled up a chair. Let's look at it together. She blinked at me, surprised. You'd help? I always planned to help, Cassie. I just needed you to want it for yourself. For the first time in weeks, her expression softened. She looked like the little girl who used to climb into my bed after nightmares, clutching her teddy bear and whispering, "Don't let go, Mommy." We spread the papers out across the table and talked for an hour. I saw flickers of the girl I'd raised, the ambitious, creative, fiercely determined Cassie. She hadn't disappeared. She'd just gotten lost somewhere between social media filters and peer pressure. And me, I realized I wasn't just rebuilding my life. I was reintroducing myself to both of us. It was a Tuesday evening when I came home to find the house unusually quiet. No TV blaring, no music leaking from under Cassie's door. Just a soft, tentative hum, her voice from the kitchen. I paused in the hallway. She was humming a lullaby I used to sing to her when she was little. I hadn't heard it in years. When I stepped into the kitchen, she was icing cupcakes, badly. There was frosting on the counter, on her sleeve, even in her hair. She looked up, startled, and for a second I saw it again, that fragile, half-grown child underneath the nearly adult shell. "They're for the neighbors," she said. "They just had a baby." I nodded, not asking why. She wasn't the cupcake type. Then she added, and I made extra. There were 2 plates. One set aside for me, vanilla with blue sprinkles. I sat down, and she poured me a glass of milk without asking. No words passed between us. None needed to. She'd apologized in the only way she could right now, not with words, but with buttercream and sugar and the memory of something sweet we used to share. We sat there, eating like we hadn't in years, side by side, not as mother and child divided by war, but as 2 women slowly remembering how to coexist. Later that night, she knocked on my bedroom door. "Can I ask you something?" she said. I looked up from my book. "Of course. Do you think I'm turning out okay?" It was the most vulnerable I'd seen her in months. I set the book down. "Cassie, you're turning out like all of us do, one mistake at a time. But the fact that you're asking, that's how I know you're learning." She sat on the edge of my bed, chewing her lip like she used to when nervous. I think I needed to fall a little. "We all do," I said softly. "But it's not about the fall. It's about what you build after you hit the ground." She nodded, her eyes shiny. "Thank you," she whispered. That night, after she left my room, I cried. Not out of sadness, not even relief. Just the overwhelming wash of love. The kind that bends but doesn't break. The kind that sits quietly in the background, waiting to be seen again. By mid-April, spring had officially stretched its legs. The dogwoods outside our window were in full bloom, and Cassie had started riding her bike to the community college campus to get a feel for things. She didn't talk about her old dream school anymore. Not out of bitterness, but because she had started dreaming differently. One Saturday morning, we were sorting through a box of old paperwork, financial aid letters, medical records, her art from 2nd grade, when Cassie pulled out an envelope. It was addressed to her from her father. She hadn't seen him in years, hadn't wanted to. But there it was, postmarked from some city in Florida I'd never been to. She opened it carefully, like it might bite her. Inside was a check, a large one, enough to cover a full semester and then some. Cassie held it for a long time before handing it to me. "I don't want it," she said. "Not from him." "You should think it over," I said. She shook her head. "It's guilt money. I don't need that." It was the first time she'd ever used those words, "I don't need." I saw something shift in her then, a clarity I'd only ever seen in glimpses. That same weekend, I got a call from the law office. Donna had put in her notice. They wanted to promote me. More hours, better pay, health benefits. I didn't even have to think twice. I accepted. That Monday, I bought a new pair of shoes. Sturdy ones with a little heel. I stood in front of the bathroom mirror and practiced saying, "I'm Margaret, office manager." It felt like trying on a new skin, and yet, somehow it fit. Cassie and I started a new routine. She'd make coffee in the mornings. I'd make dinner in the evenings. We'd share recipes, swap stories about our days. She even started asking for advice, real advice, not just "where's the ketchup?" One night, we watched a movie together, something old and cheesy. We laughed like we used to when she was 10, and everything felt a little simpler. And then she said it, soft, unassuming, but clear as a bell. "Mom, I'm sorry. I paused the movie, looked at her. For what? For forgetting you were a person." I didn't need her to say it, but I'll tell you. Hearing it healed something I didn't know was still cracked. "I'm learning to forgive," I said. "And not just you. Me too." We held hands for a moment, 2 women who had seen each other's worst and stayed. Graduation came on a soft, golden morning in mid-May. Cassie didn't want a cap and gown. "It's just an associate's degree," she mumbled, as if saying it out loud might shrink it somehow. But I looked at her, hair neatly brushed, eyes a little brighter, shoulders straighter than they'd been in months, and saw a milestone, not a placeholder. We celebrated at home. No big party, no Instagram announcement. Just the 2 of us in our kitchen, surrounded by memories and mismatched chairs. Cassie baked a cake, chocolate, slightly overcooked around the edges, but slathered in thick, messy layers of buttercream frosting. She had watched 3 YouTube tutorials the night before, trying to get it just right. "I know it's ugly," she said, laughing as she presented it like it was a masterpiece. "It's beautiful," I told her, and I meant it. She lit 2 candles, not for age, but for gratitude, she said, and we ate warm slices off paper plates while the breeze drifted through the open window, carrying the scent of dogwoods and a neighbor's barbecue. It wasn't Pinterest perfect, but it was ours. That summer, she got a job at a local bookstore downtown. She biked there most days, returning home with ink-stained fingers and stories about quirky customers and the joy of matching readers to the right book. One afternoon, I walked in to surprise her and saw her crouched beside a little boy, helping him pick out a dinosaur book. Her voice was low, patient. Her smile genuine. She looked up, caught my eye, and in that moment I saw the child I raised and the woman she'd become, finally side by side. Meanwhile, my own life kept expanding in quiet, powerful ways. At the law office, I was no longer just the office manager. I'd become a voice in the room people listened to. Donna, my old mentor, even handed me the reins during client consultations. "Margaret has a way of making sense out of chaos," she told a client once, and I felt something in me settle, like roots finally finding soil. I also returned to the nonprofit that helped me re-enter the workforce. Only this time, I wasn't attending workshops. I was teaching them. My first session was called Reclaiming Your Voice After 50. I told a room full of women about how I lost myself in motherhood, in silence, in sacrifice, and how I slowly, painfully, and powerfully found my way back. One woman approached me afterward. Her eyes were brimming. "I thought it was just me," she said. "No," I told her gently. "There are so many of us. You just have to look between the cracks. That's where the strongest roots grow." In late August, Cassie received her acceptance letter to the state university, only an hour away. We packed up her things in quiet excitement, labeling boxes, folding jeans, wrapping mugs in old t-shirts. There was a rhythm to it, like we were building something together, not just a college transition, but a foundation for who she was becoming. On move-in day, she hugged me tightly outside her dorm. No cameras, no big fanfare. Just a mother and daughter on the edge of something new. "I love you," she whispered into my shoulder. I held her a moment longer, then whispered back, "I know. I love you too." She paused at the bottom of the stairs, her keys in hand, her life in boxes. "You're the strongest person I know," she said. I didn't cry in front of her. I smiled, waved, waited until her car disappeared from view. Then I walked back inside, sat on the porch with my tea, and let the quiet settle. It wasn't the silence of loss anymore. It was the peace of reclamation. Because for the first time in decades, I wasn't just someone's mother, someone's ride, someone's helper in the background of their life. I was Margaret again, and I was just getting started.